The secret to being a scholar can be summed up in one rare word. This word is one of the most warred against things in the modern age. And it's the reason why so few gentlemen and ladies seek scholarly pursuits amid their normal everyday lives. This rare word is leisure. Leisure is, according to the German philosopher Joseph Pieper, the contemplative reception of reality through our highest activities. In other words, in leisure, we clear the mind to make room for more robust considerations of things that truly matter. Leisure, done right, then, leads to contemplation. So to be a scholar, not in a ivory tower intellectual sense, but in the gentleman and scholar sense, in the man who spends his evenings reading and is deeply rooted in great ideas, you need to do things that are going to promote leisure in your everyday life. Going for a walk without your earbuds is a splendid time for leisure. Watching the sunset, having a pipe of tobacco or cigar on your patio, and watching the cars go by. Doing things that allow you to interact with your mind as you observe the world around you is a leisurely activity. I like to think of leisurely things as things that I don't have to do, but once I'm finished doing them, I feel good that I did them. In other words, when I am online on my phone, on the couch for half an hour swiping shorts, I don't feel good about myself after that. But if I sit in my garden, and just literally look at the plants and let my mind think, as long as I'm not neglecting an important duty, I actually feel good that I did that. And so doing things that lead your mind time and space to think is what makes someone a scholar, at least in large measure. It's that time away from the bustle and craziness of life that allows you to actually think, to process the things you know. This was once the role of the leisure class. People who had the time to collect art and adorn their homes with it, who had the time to be a Maecenas and give money to artists and poets and writers. And this is an important thing that we need to reclaim in our everyday lives if we're going to at all try to understand the realities of the world, the deeper things of the world. So try to find things that promote leisure. For me, a cup of tea, my old Peterson pipe, and half an hour sitting in my garden is one of those things. In moments of leisure, then, try to turn to eternal things. Filling your mind with great art, literature, and books, poetry, they're not contemplation in and of themselves. They're not contemplative in and of themselves. And they're not leisure in and of themselves, although you do need leisurely space to sit and read or to look at a piece of art. Leisure, and more specifically, contemplation, comes in after you've closed the leaves of your favorite book, after you've turned off the piece of music, after you've walked away from the painting. That is when the real work happens. You see, you have to read diligently with pen or pencil in hand. And this is not just for ivory tower intellectuals. This is for everyday people like you and me, people who have jobs, who are busy, but want to cultivate the life of the mind. And if that speaks to you, read the book. Read the book diligently with a pen in hand. Look up the definitions. Think about things. Dwell on the painting. Listen carefully to the piece of music, but don't stop there. That is the very beginning. But the real work happens once you close that book, once you hit pause in the symphony, once you walk away and turn your back on the painting. Once you've looked at the sunset and the sunset's gone down, then the real work of contemplation happens. And you must create meaningful times of leisure so you have time for that contemplation. If you're all busy, if you're always reading, if you're always listening to a podcast, if the next YouTube video after the next YouTube video keeps playing, that noise in your mind will drive out the real work of scholarly pursuits. And that is contemplation. What is contemplation? It's a deep thinking. It's a regurgitation over what's in your mind, leading you to greater and higher truths, greater and higher things. When you read a great passage in a book, you don't own that. It's passing through from your eyes into your brain. It's only later when you dwell on that, when you regurgitate that, when you think about that, that it becomes part of you. I was around cows for a while and worked with my neighbor and helped keep their cows. One of the things cows always like to do is lay in the shade and regurgitate. They have 4 stomachs for the purpose. And they sit there and they spit their food up and they chew it on it again. That should be the image in your mind after you've read a great book, after you've looked at a great work of art, after you've heard or seen something beautiful, transcendent, sublime. Don't just turn to the next thing. Don't just turn the page. Stop. Think. It's hard. My mind wanders in these times often. But when I am able to capture something deeper, then the poem, then the book, then the novel becomes part of me. I own it when I thought about it, not just in passing, but when I've mused upon it, when I've regurgitated it in my mind, when I've allowed myself to truly turn to the eternal things, the eternal implications of something beautiful or true or good. An example is I've tried to cultivate bluebells in my garden for a long time, and eventually I finally got it. And just having that time in my garden, staring into my bluebells, was a time when I wasn't interacting with a poem or a song or a piece of music or YouTube or TikTok or anything like that. I was just present in the moment. And the blueness of that flower connected me with the idea of goodness and beauty in a transcendent experience. And I was enraptured. Of course, that's not always how contemplation is. Sometimes you're on a walk and you're just thinking about the forms of Plato, or maybe a story that you've read, how it impacts you. Ask yourself questions. Why did I like this story? Why has Moby Dick stayed with me all these years? What's it about Captain Ahab? What's it about the whale? What's it about the seemingly mindless information about whaling that sticks with me? Ask yourself those questions. Ask yourself those questions deeply, and then you'll have learned. And this really connects with what Aristotle would say is the chief end of man. The chief end of man for Aristotle is contemplation. And the highest form of contemplation is the contemplation of the highest thing, which for Aristotle was the supreme good, is God himself in the Christian tradition. The beatific vision, the moment when the soul sees God for the first time. And there's a connection. There's also a connection in knowledge, in the sight, in the vision of our eternal end. And that, in the Christian tradition at least, is the meaning of life. Is the highest meaning of life. So practice that on earth. Kill hustle culture. Work hard. And then stop. Turn off your phone. Put it in the other room. I use my phone every day, but I try to have times, blocks of time without it. Time that I can think. I can reflect. You have to read the books. Watch the plays. Look at the pictures. Look at nature. Do all of those things, but don't stop there. Move deeper in and think about it. Deep thinking does happen after you're done interacting with people, with the book, not apart from that. And that is where real education, meaningful culture, purposeful scholarship happens.